right, guys, tip number one, it's going to be the paperwork. I'm outside here at a tag agency, and trust me, this is the last place you want to be, waiting in line for 2 hours just for the clerk to tell you you're missing something from that new bike purchase. Nothing kills the new bike buzz faster than finding out you needed a bill of sale, the title is signed in the wrong place. So many numerous things can go wrong. For that reason, I always recommend avoid, let's call them special situations, special titles. Anything like a salvage, rebuilt, death in the family, out-of-state transfer. Not that those things can't be resolved pretty easily, but for a first-time bike buyer, you just don't want to deal with the extra stress. We're going to keep this list going, so let's get out, show you some things on the bikes, and we'll get into the next tips for you. So tip number 2, going out to the bikes. There's Dallas. Hey, buddy. So tip number 2, always meet at the seller's house. There's a few reasons for this, but the number one reason is you get to get a look around, right? So you can see what the bikes look like when you pull up. You can start to see how do they keep the bike stored. What does the garage look like? What does the driveway look like? This is going to give you an indication of how the bike is taken care of. So you can start to look around, all right? So when we first pull up here, you can see there's 2 bikes. Maybe the ad said the reason for selling was have 2, can't ride both, right? So he's selling 1. If that's what the ad said, that'll make sense, and you can tell that as soon as you show up. But the other thing you can do is look around, start checking the pavement, and you can say, okay, I don't see a lot of oil stains. That would be a huge red flag. Are there parts thrown all over? Are there tarps that were pushed off the bikes and just thrown to the side? Are there kids' toys everywhere? You know, dogs, cats running around, just an absolute mess. Then you can kind of get an idea, this guy didn't take care of the bikes, right? So getting a look at the area will give you an idea of how well the bikes were maybe maintained. And that's just from pulling up. The next thing you can tell the seller, I want that bike cold when I show up. And the reason for that, you'll hear a lot of people say this, is you can get an idea of how the bike cold starts. Even going in as a new buyer, you might not know a lot about motorcycles, but when you go to start that up, just like a car, you'll notice something doesn't sound right. It should have started better than that. You can tell the seller, I want that bike cold when I show up. And the sellers might start to push you ideas. Oh, it's just a battery. It just needs a new battery. Oh, it's just you know, I haven't started it in a while. Start to look for those red flags, and you'll think something doesn't sound right. Now it may very well be just a battery, and that's a pretty easy fix. And you know right how much it's going to cost you right out the gate. It's not a guesswork on that. So that's not necessarily a deal breaker, but it's something for you to pay attention to. So always ask for the bike to be cold. Now you'll hear a lot of us say that, make sure that bike is cold. And you'll see a lot online, people are actually starting to post in their videos, but one way to test that is just put your hand on the bike when you show up. You know, is the exhaust cold? Is the oil tank cold? Just feel around and make sure there's not any warmth to the bike. That'll give you an indication of maybe it wasn't started right before you got there, but at some time within that past hour or so, they were getting that bike ready for you to show up. And you don't want to find out what they were hiding after you've already handed them money. So another easy thing you can do while you're down here is just go ahead and take your hand and give it a sweep underneath. And is there any obvious leaks, fluid buildup, dirt, grime buildup? You know, you don't have to be an expert to tell the underneath side of this bike is dirty or leaking something. And that'll give you an indication to maybe just pause, start to ask a few more questions about how the bike's been maintained, and just give it an extra look while you're down here. The bike, we're going to get into tip number 3, and that's going to be the fluids. Now for this, you're going to make sure you want to bring a flashlight, but it's basically like the peephole check. You don't have to take anything apart on the bike, but it can give you a good indication of what's going on inside some of the parts. So let's grab a flashlight and take a look. Okay, so like I said, this is going to be pretty quick and easy. I call it the peephole check. Some people might call it something else, but basically you're going to just check the fuel, the gas tank, and the oil tank. And this will give you a quick indication, especially if it's an older bike or it's been sitting for a while. Just go ahead and take a look down in there with a flashlight And what you're looking for is any rust, weird kind of smell. If the tank has been lined with a liner, after some years, that can start to come apart and fill the tank with debris. So you want to take a look in there. And really, you're just looking for anything obvious that might be a red flag. Obviously, you're not going to be able to see the whole fuel system by doing this, but it's going to give you a good indication of that looks pretty good. And the seller might even tell you something. So for this bike, I'm not selling it, but as an example, I don't know if you really see how clean it is in there, but I just took it all apart and cleaned out that tank maybe a month ago or so. So that's another thing. If I'm telling you, don't worry about that, I cleaned it out not that long ago, well, that's a good integrity check for you. Take your flashlight, look in there and see if the seller actually did clean that out recently. Now, after doing that, remember, you're going to do this while it's cold. Leave that gas cap off. So when you go and do the first start of the bike, have that open. So if you're hearing anything weird, you can actually take a look in there and see what inside that fuel tank looks like while you're trying to start the bike. So when you first click that primer on, you're going to, you turn this on to ignition. You're going to listen to that fuel pump try to engage. Take a look in the tank. If you see a lot of bubbles or it just looks like a straight up hurricane in there, stop and start asking questions. There's something wrong with the fuel system. It should not be bubbling and looking like a Category 5 hurricane coming through your gas tank. So stop there before you move on to the rest of the bike. Remember, you're going to be excited. You're going to love the color, love the bike, love the looks of the exhaust. Slow down and start to look for those red flags early on. All right, so the next thing we can take a look at is the oil. And the sellers won't mind that you're doing any of this. They usually expect it. I mean, not necessarily going to let you roll up and start disassembling the bike, but they usually don't have a problem with you checking stuff like this. If they do, that's another red flag. Why are they trying to avoid me to start looking at things? But in there, you're just looking, is there a decent level? Is it, is it starting to look milky or have a weird burnt smell to it? Those are the types you're looking for. But basically, you're just going to come down there and take a look in there with a flashlight. Nothing high tech to that. So you're going to just take a peek with the flashlight and see what's going on there. Again, as a new buyer, new to the motorcycle scene, you might not recognize much, but you'll get a quick indication if something is off in that oil. All right, so with that, we're going to move on to tip number 4, and that's going to be tires. So you can actually check that while you're down here, but I recommend before you get to the tires, go ahead and stand up after this. Take a step back. Again, you want to move slow with this process because you're going to be excited. So take a step back, give it another once over, see how everything's looking. Think about what you've already looked at, and then go around and start to look at the tires. Okay, so the tires I cannot stress enough because you'll see this as a red flag in a lot of Facebook postings. You're going to see things like tires have a lot of tread left. Maybe it says 10,000 miles, but a lot of life left. Those are just the kind of comments people make about the tires. And that may be the case. But if you're shopping for an older bike with low miles, one thing you want to key in on is the DOT number on the tire. That's a date stamp to let you know when the tire was produced. Now, why that becomes important for an older bike with low miles, chances are they obviously didn't ride it that much. So for them in their job posting, especially if they don't know a lot about tires, it's going to be, tires are like new, barely ridden, 5,000 miles. But if it's a 20-year-old bike, that's a good indication that those tires are probably the OEM tires from the factory, and they haven't had much maintenance done to the bike because they felt like they haven't needed. But if you've started to do your homework a little bit, you realize bikes that sit are actually a lot worse than bikes that have a lot of miles on them. The seals rot, the tires rot, and they can be very expensive very quick. So just get excited about a 2009, Dyna as an example with only 10,000 miles. If there's nothing wrong with the bike, it's a good deal, but there's going to be a lot of extra things for you to look at when you get there. So for the tires, let's go down here and take a look at the date and grab this flashlight just so you can see it. All right, so if we come down here, we take a look at the tire. You're going to look for the DOT date, and it's a 4-digit number stamped on there. And see, I get a flashlight on there, you can see a little better. But on here you can see this tire. But on here you can see the date on this tire. It's 4 digits, 2223 is what it says on there. So if you can see the date stamp there, the 4-digit number is 2223. Now what that means is that this tire was manufactured in the 22nd week of 2023. 23 is the year. So the first 2 digits are the week of the year, and the last 2 digits are the year. So 2223, you can see I got those tires, not that long ago, so I could say there's a lot of life left on those. Some things you have to take into consideration are the area that you live in. Are there a lot of shops that can put those tires on for you? If not, there could be a backlog of service appointments. So it may take you 2 or 3 weeks to get the tires in, and another 2 weeks to get an appointment to have tires put on. So you're looking at a month of sitting. Now, depending on your area, again, maybe your riding season is coming to the end when you purchase this bike, and you don't mind it taking a few weeks, or you don't mind it sitting in the garage for a month or two, because you're not going to be doing much riding anyway. But if you're buying in the beginning of the season, or an area where your riding season is extended throughout most of the year, like Florida, that's a buzzkill. The last thing you want to do is park that bike. You showed up, you loved it, you're like, oh, it's so beautiful, it sounds so good. And now I got to sit here and look at it while I'm waiting for some tires, and I'm out an extra $500. So make sure that's something that you're comfortable with, and you're just aware of that can be a costly and timely process. So again, the tire date is not a showstopper, but it's a good indication for you. Take a pause at this time again, because we're excited. We don't want to make a bad purchase. So get that tire date, get that in your mind, start to think about what that might cost you. What does it mean for the care of the bike if the tire's a little old? And just take a breather there before we move on to the next tip, which is also going to save you a lot of money. Next tip for you guys is going to be listen to your gut. Your gut instinct is really going to help you out when making that, not only that first purchase, but really every purchase. As seasons as you can get. Like I said, I bought my first bike 20 years ago, and even still when I show up, you can't help but get that little kid excitement when you see the bike that you're thinking about buying, right? You've already excited about it when you saw it online. That's why you're showing up to look at it with the cash in your pocket. So it's easy, really easy to get that high and forget about those simple mistakes. So I would say, next tip is listen to your gut. When you show up, like I said, you're going to that seller's location. Things might not feel right away. Slow down, take that extra eye on those bikes, really give them a good look. When you check those tires, you start checking those fluids. It may look good at those initial glances, but really take a step back after you've checked all that and look at the bike, look at the seller, listen to what they're saying, and then listen to your gut. It's always better to just walk away. But that final tip is going to be, look through the pictures on Facebook and see what the seller is posting for their marketplace pictures. And the reason I say that is, and this may be just a little paranoid overkill from me, but I like to see, this may just be a little overkill, but I like to see, do they ride in groups a lot? Do they have a lot of friends in their pictures? Is there always more than one bike? And the reason why I say that is because if they have a good circle of friends that are also riders, they probably have a few people who are friends who aren't riders, and they're also not interested in buying this person's bike. So for whatever reason, that's a flag for me. That's a flag for me. There's other riders that you go with, you go on group rides, you have a lot of friends that also ride bikes, and no one is interested in the bike that you're selling. Even though you're telling us that this bike is a head turner, super fast, low miles, I'd take her anywhere, I'd cross country with no problems, just came back from 6 states away without any issues. If the bike is that great, why are you selling it, number one? And then two, how come you don't know anyone who wants this great bike? So those are just, again, that may just me being a little extra paranoid, but I always use caution with that, and actually just kind of tend to avoid those bikes. But that would be the last, that's that bonus tip. Now, again, tell me what you guys think in the comment. I hope your purchasing is exciting and you get the bike that you're looking for. If not, just remember we've all made that bad purchase. Don't dump too much money into getting it fixed to correct those mistakes that you made on the initial purchase. Enjoy it as much as you can, learn on it, and then, you know, pass it on for something else. Those are the 5 tips, guys. I hope they're useful to you. No riding for me today. I'm actually gonna go hit the golf course. Can't ride every day, now can we? I'll catch up with you guys later. Hit that like, hit that subscribe. Thanks for watching.